for today's task, Bagheera, stop it. We're going to be looking at line graphs, and you've been given some data to use. So this is the data you have. Now I've cut it out, and I have looked at my data, and I've started to think about it a bit. I have done the following. I've looked at the lowest and the highest for the women and the men. There's a reason for that, and you might be able to work out why. So if you're drawing a line graph and you're using a scale, there are a few things to think about. I'm going to show you a couple of examples, and the first two you'll see don't work very well, and I want you to see if you can work out why. So keep this data in mind. I know you won't be able to see it at the moment, but what we need to think about is the fact that my lowest time that is scored by anybody is 9.63, and that was a man, and the highest time scored by anyone was 11.08, and that was scored by a woman. So let's say we had this as our set of data. And by the way, this is a fact you'll need for another one of your learning tasks. The point at the corner of a grid, 0, 0, is called the origin. Just drop that in there because you'll need to know for another time. Back to this. So if I have a grid like this, and I was trying to put labels on it, I would say to myself, right, well, I know that I need to put the years on, and my years go from 1976 all the way up to 2016. And so down the bottom, I've got my years. Now you might notice I've gone overboard. If you notice, I've actually put in 2020 and 2024. I don't need those because I only have data going up to 2016. So I should really have just left those bits blank, even if that means having a little bit of the line that isn't included. That's not a big problem, but I shouldn't have gone over 2016. So that's the first thing. Now look at this other axis, the y-axis. This is showing the time that people have run. I've gone from 0 seconds all the way up to 18 seconds. Can you think of why that is not going to create a very effective line graph? Well, let's just recap some of the times, and I'll start to plot some of them on. I'll start by doing the men. You're going to need to use two different lines, one for the men and one for the women. So let's say I was going to plot 10.06 for 1976. So here's 1976. Oh, 10.06 is about there. My next number is 10.25. Well, that's about there. Then it's 9.9. Then it's 9.92. Then it's 9.96. Now I haven't even finished my line, and hopefully you get the idea that actually by the time I've gone all the way to 2016, where my score is 9.81, my line is going to look something like that. Well, that's not a very useful line graph. It's very, very squashed. I've got all of this space that I haven't used. If I've got a lowest score of 9.63 and a highest of 11.8, I definitely don't need an axis that starts at 1 and goes all the way up to 18, because I'm simply not going to use those numbers, and it means my line is just a bit rubbish and doesn't actually show me anything. So let's look at another example. If I'm only needing to go from 9.63 up to 18 point something, surely I can just go from 9 to 12, because that would be enough. So I could do it like this. I've got 9, 10, 11, 12. Got my years as before. Hopefully it doesn't take a genius to work out that this is not great either, because it's still very, very squashed. If I was to draw my line, I'd get something similar again, a bit better, but not great. So, for the men, 10.6 would be there, 10.25, 9.9 would be about there, 9.92, 9.96, 9.84, 9.87, 9.85, 9.69, 9.63, 9.81, and then maybe for the females I might have something, I'd have 11.8, 11.6, 10.97, 10.54, 10.82. So you get the idea. You can see the lines more clearly than before. You can see a bit of a shape, and with a line graph I would always use a ruler, by the way. I don't have one at the moment, but I'd always join my dots with a ruler. But actually what you're seeing here is still a big waste of space up there. So what I would really want is something a bit like this. So I would have my year at the bottom like before, and then I'll show you this more closely. I haven't finished drawing it out yet, but I would start with my lowest number, or just below it, so 9.6, and then I'm going to use as much space as I can of my axes. So instead of going up in jumps of one whole, so 9, 10, 11, 12, I can do tiny jumps of tenths, so 9.6, 9.7, 9.8, and I would keep that going, and I would go all the way up until I'd got as far as I need to go, which would be, for me, is going to be 11.1, because the time on our data, the highest time that we need to include, is 11.08. Now, like I said before, I might have a tiny bit of the axes left. That's not the end of the world. But once I've written all of these numbers in and filled it in properly, gone all the way up, that will mostly be full. And what you will see is that when you plot your data for your men and then your data for your women, it will be much clearer, it will give you a nice shape, and you'll see it really well. So that's what we're aiming for when you're drawing your line graphs. 2 other things just to make sure. You must include a title. A title for a graph is really important. Just seeing a graph is not going to tell you much. So your title for this needs to be a line graph to show, and then you explain what your data is showing. And also labels. So on mine already on here, I've got my year at the bottom, just here, saying that these are my years, and I've got my time in seconds along the side. Seconds is important, so we know it's not minutes or anything like that. So when you do your line graphs, what we're aiming for is spaced out, equal intervals. I need to make sure that I'm going up in the same jump each time, that it's nicely spaced out, and that it's using the entire axes. Have a go.